There's something that happens before words, before action, before the strategy, before the prayer, before the carefully chosen affirmation whispered into the mirror. There's a signal, a tone, a frequency that hums through your being like the background song of your existence. And that is what reality listens to. Not the polished mantra, not the eloquent desire, but the energy underneath it. The energy that doesn't need to be spoken because it's already being broadcasted, moment by moment, breath by breath. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. Not who you say you are, not who you wish you were, but who your nervous system, your cells, your field believe you to be. We live in a vibrational universe that does not speak English, Portuguese, or Spanish. It speaks resonance. It responds to coherence. It mirrors back the signal you emit, not the story you tell. So you can say, I am abundant every morning with your lips. But if the frequency you hold is scarcity, tension, doubt, the field feels that. That's what gets mirrored. You can write a list of intentions, speak them aloud under the moon, script your desires with perfect syntax. But if your body is in a state of resistance, if your breath is shallow, your heart armored, your energy fractured, the signal is static. The message gets scrambled. Because the universe is not responding to your words. It's responding to your being. Have you noticed how someone can walk into a room and say nothing, yet their presence says everything? They don't have to convince you of who they are. You feel it. There's something undeniable about them. Not because of their appearance or their title, but because of the frequency they carry. They are clear, settled, aligned. You feel safe around them. You feel awakened. That's the power of embodiment. That's what happens when your energy is not just talking, but telling the truth. It's the difference between saying, I trust, and actually feeling trust. Saying, I let go while gripping for control inside. Saying, I'm enough while scanning the world for proof that you matter. When the nervous system is dysregulated, when survival energy is running the show, no amount of verbal affirmation can override that underlying signal. Because survival has a frequency. Fear has a frequency. Neediness, grasping, forcing, all carry a specific energetic tone. And reality listens. It mirrors. It responds in kind. But so does coherence. So does peace. So does surrender. So does the soft exhale of someone who no longer needs to chase. When you begin to regulate your inner world, not with effort, but with awareness, you start to shift your frequency from the inside out. You begin to broadcast a different signal, one that doesn't need to beg reality for proof. One that simply is the proof. This is why presence is so magnetic, because presence is pure frequency. It's the space where nothing is forced, yet everything is felt. It's the moment where your body is no longer at war with itself, where your energy is no longer fragmented across 1,000 what-ifs. It's the moment your heart and brain begin to synchronize, your breath slows, your field expands, and life begins to respond, not because you asked, but because you aligned. Think of a radio tower. It doesn't scream, it doesn't push, it simply emits, constantly, consistently, quietly. And only the radios tuned to its frequency will hear its song. You don't need to convince the universe to hear you. You only need to emit a signal that matches the timeline you desire. That timeline already exists. That version of you already lives, already breathes, already thrives. But you can't access that version with misaligned energy. You must become the match, not by force, by frequency. So ask yourself, not what am I saying, but what am I sending? Not what do I want, but what am I holding? What's the signal underneath my smile? What's the frequency beneath my desire? Because the universe isn't fooled by words. It feels who you are, and it responds accordingly. It begins in the body, not the mind, not the vision board, not the affirmation journal, but in the quiet chambers of your nervous system, the electric river that runs beneath every thought, every emotion, every action you take. If your system doesn't feel safe, your frequency won't feel safe. If your system is in protection, your field is in contraction. And a contracted field cannot receive what it doesn't feel safe to hold. We've been taught to think our way into manifestation, to think harder, to think better, to visualize more clearly. But the mind can only create within the bounds of what the body permits. You can't manifest a future your body doesn't believe it can survive. This is why change often feels so difficult. Because it's not about doing something different. It's about becoming someone new. And becoming someone new requires more than thoughts. It requires regulation, rewiring, resonance. It means meeting the parts of you that learn to hold tension just to feel secure. The parts that clenched, braced, performed just to belong. Those patterns are frequencies. They aren't just habits, they're signals. They're how your body learned to tune its radio to survival, even when you say you're calling in abundance. So you say the words, you do the rituals. But if your frequency is still frozen in a past where you had to prove your worth to be chosen, then life mirrors that frequency, not your future self's dream. Embodiment is not a concept. It's not something you perform. It's something you feel, moment to moment. It's the way your breath moves when you're not performing, the way your voice softens when you're not pretending, the way your spine realigns when you stop apologizing for your presence. It's the shift from effort to essence, from pretending to presence. And presence is power, not the kind that pushes, the kind that pulses, quiet, clear, undeniable. Have you noticed how life bends toward someone who doesn't need to grasp? How opportunities, people, and moments seem to find those who are simply being themselves, without chasing, without proving. That's frequency in action. That's coherence. And coherence can't be faked. You either are it, or you're trying to be it. Trying carries a vibration. So does trust. When you embody trust, life trusts you back. When your system knows safety, life brings more that feels safe. Because you're no longer vibrating at the frequency of lack, but of presence. And presence holds everything, not with force, but with openness, with readiness, with truth. So how do you shift the frequency? Not by doing more, but by feeling more. By slowing down enough to notice, where am I tightening? Where am I resisting? Where am I pretending I'm okay when I'm not? These micro moments are invitations. Invitations to come home to your body, to breathe, to release, to rewire the signal you've been sending without knowing. Because once your field becomes safe, your reality becomes soft. Once your signal becomes coherent, your life becomes clear. This is the vibrational law most people miss. You're not manifesting with your thoughts. You're manifesting with your tone, the texture of your presence, the weight of your being, the quiet hum of who you are when no one is watching. That is what speaks to the universe. That is what creates the form, not the word. The wave, not the sentence, the signal. And when you begin to live from this place, not just occasionally, but consistently, reality begins to shift without force. Timelines collapse, paths open, synchronicities unfold like petals after rain. Not because you said the right thing, but because you finally became the right frequency. And the beautiful truth is this: the more you embody this frequency, the less you need to say, because life already knows what to give you. You've already spoken, through your being, through your breath, through your signal. Sometimes I catch myself reaching, not with my hands, but with my energy. A subtle forward lean, a silent chase, as if, by pushing just a little more, thinking more clearly, speaking more intentionally, asking with the right words, I'll finally unlock the response I crave from life. But it never works like that, because frequency doesn't come from reaching, it comes from remembering. And what we often forget is this: every time we reach, we're also saying, I'm not there yet. Every time we grasp, the signal we send is one of absence, not presence, of lack, not embodiment. And the field hears that. The field reflects that. You don't get what you want by chasing it. You get it by becoming the version of you who no longer needs to chase. Not with apathy, but with alignment. With the knowing that if it's already done within you, it must arrive outside you. This is not magical thinking. It's magnetic reality. It's physics. It's coherence. You felt this in small sacred moments. The friend who texts just as you think of them. The job offer that comes after you finally stop worrying about your resume. The stranger who says exactly what you needed to hear. On the day you stop trying to fix everything. These aren't accidents. They're alignments. They happen when your field softens, when your signal shifts from I need to I am. The body knows how to do this. Your cells know the rhythm of alignment. The heart knows the texture of truth. It's the mind that doubts, the ego that scrambles, the programming that clings to control. And when the mind leads, frequency becomes fractured. It speaks in static, in contradiction. It says, I trust, while vibrating, I don't. It says, I'm ready, while holding on for dear life. But when you lead with your being, with your breath, your rhythm, your grounded presence, everything reorganizes. Reality no longer has to guess what you mean, because now your signal is clear. Now you are not speaking from desire, you are speaking as the desire fulfilled. And life listens differently to that tone. It leans in, it rearranges, not in response to the words, but to the wave of coherence they ride on. There is a difference between wanting and holding. Wanting says, it's not here yet. Holding says, it's already mine. And your nervous system knows the difference. Your heart rate knows. Your posture knows. Your energy field knows. Wanting creates tension. Holding creates openness. And openness is the state where miracles are permitted to arrive. Think of a flower. It doesn't force itself to bloom. It aligns with the sun. It expands when the conditions match its inner readiness. And when it blooms, it doesn't beg the bees to come. They arrive, magnetized by the scent of full embodiment. That's how reality responds to you. Not when you perform, but when you open, when you become the frequency of what you say you seek. So many are trapped in the loop of saying the right things while living in the wrong vibration. Speaking love, but vibrating fear. Speaking peace, but radiating control. Speaking abundance, but vibrating urgency. The field isn't fooled. And that's not punishment. That's precision. The universe is exact, not emotional. It gives you not what you request, but what you reverberate. This is where the shift happens. When you stop asking, how do I get it? And start asking, how do I be it? When you move from language to embodiment, from effort to essence, from hope to wholeness, this is when your frequency stabilizes. And in that stability, creation becomes inevitable. The form must match the field. It's law. It's truth. It's your design. You don't need to prove it. Just pulse it. You don't need to perform it. Just become it. You don't need to fight for it. Just feel it. Fully, deeply, honestly, until the vibration settles into your bones, until your presence becomes the prayer, until your breath becomes the broadcast, until the words fall away, and your energy does the talking. It took me years to understand that I wasn't blocked. I was just broadcasting mixed signals. I was holding two truths that couldn't coexist in the same frequency. I was saying, I want freedom, but living as if everything depended on control. I was affirming, I trust the process, while checking the clock, the metrics, the signs, every few minutes. My mouth said one thing, my energy said another, and the universe, as always, responded to my frequency, not my phrasing. This is why so many feel like manifestation doesn't work, because it does. It's just not responding to the surface. It's responding to the root, to the subconscious resonance you've rehearsed 1,000 times without even realizing. The silent vibration of, I'm not safe unless I'm in control. The quiet hum of, I have to earn what I desire. The echo of, who I am isn't quite enough yet. And those vibrations run deeper than words. They shape your tone, your posture, your very presence. But here's the miracle hidden in the misunderstanding. Your frequency is not fixed. It is not who you are. It's what you're practicing. And every moment is a chance to practice something new. Not through willpower, not through force, but through the courage to feel, to regulate, to choose again. The moment you soften the armor, the moment you let your body feel safe with what you desire, your field begins to recalibrate. You stop rehearsing resistance. You start embodying receptivity. Have you ever noticed how much energy goes into protecting yourself from disappointment? How we often unconsciously brace for life to let us down, just to avoid the fall? That bracing is a frequency. And as long as it's active, even the most beautiful desires feel far away. Not because they are, but because we've taught our body that closeness isn't safe, that joy might leave, that success might hurt. And so we buffer, we delay, we stay in the frequency of waiting, instead of welcoming. But when you let your nervous system taste the sensation of "it's already here," something shifts. You move from contraction to creation. You begin to pulse differently. You walk slower, speak softer, breathe deeper. Not because you're performing ease, but because you've returned to it. You've remembered that the future you want is not far away. It's already vibrating in the field. And now, you're finally tuning in. This is why embodiment matters. Because it's not enough to think differently. You have to feel differently. You have to let your system learn what abundance feels like, not just what it sounds like. You have to move like someone who is already held, already chosen, already aligned. Because embodiment is the only language the field can't ignore. When you are the frequency, life must respond. It has no choice. You've already experienced this, haven't you? Those days when you're not trying, just being. When something in you is relaxed, open, radiant, and everything flows. The right people call. The answers come. The path feels clear. That's not coincidence. That's coherence. That's what happens when your inner world stops arguing with your outer desire. When your thoughts, your emotions, your body, and your breath all say the same thing. It's not about being perfect. It's about being congruent. And congruence doesn't come from performing the right frequency. It comes from clearing the noise, releasing the tension, regulating the story beneath the story, and choosing to pulse, moment by moment, with the version of you who no longer needs to force. Because she knows she doesn't have to chase alignment. She is alignment. She doesn't have to seek safety. She feels it. So ask yourself gently, where am I still arguing with my desire? Where am I still bracing for the worst while hoping for the best? Where am I still saying the words, but vibrating the opposite? And then, breathe, recalibrate, not with effort, but with presence, not more doing, more remembering. The field doesn't need your perfect phrasing. It needs your real frequency, the one that tells the truth, the one that feels like home, the one that matches what you've been calling in all along. There's a moment, subtle, almost imperceptible, when your entire being shifts, not because something external changed, but because you no longer needed it to. A moment where you realize you're no longer waiting, not for the text, the sign, the number in the bank account, the perfect opportunity. Something in you has landed, rooted, and the irony is, that's when everything starts arriving, because you stopped holding the frequency of longing and started holding the frequency of having. This is the paradox of manifestation. The moment you no longer need the outcome to feel whole is the moment it's finally allowed to arrive, because need vibrates differently than knowing. Desperation carries a tone of distance, but embodiment, true, felt, full-body embodiment, sends a signal of proximity, of presence, of "I'm already it." And when you are already it, reality doesn't have to catch up. It meets you here. This is why acting as if can be powerful, but only when it's not performance. If it's coming from force, it creates more separation. But if it's coming from felt truth, from a nervous system that truly believes, "This is who I am now," then the field harmonizes. Not eventually, immediately. Because time is not the gatekeeper. Vibration is. We think time is what stands between us and our desires. But it's not time. It's tension. It's the delay of misalignment. The lag between the version of us that says, "I want this," and the version of us who can safely hold it. That's where timelines collapse. Not in the future, but in the now. The quantum now. The frequency now. The now that doesn't wait for outer proof to feel inner truth. You've tasted this before. Those moments where you just knew. Not because someone told you. Not because the evidence was obvious. But because your body said yes. You felt the alignment. And that feeling, that coherence, was the evidence. That's the moment the manifestation began to materialize. Not when it showed up, but when you stabilized the signal. When you said, with every fiber of your being, "This is me now." So how do we stabilize that signal? How do we hold the frequency when the outer hasn't changed yet? We stop outsourcing truth to the external. We stop using the mirror of life as the measure of our frequency. And we start letting our frequency create the reflection. It begins with devotion, not to the outcome, but to the inner tone. It means showing up each day not to get something, but to become someone whose energy no longer argues with their desire. And this doesn't mean you'll never feel doubt again. It means you stop living from it. It doesn't mean fear disappears. It means you stop letting fear write the frequency. It means when you notice the wobble, the contraction, the old signal trying to resurface, you pause, you breathe, you regulate, you choose again. Because this is vibrational mastery. Not perfection, but presence. Not constant high vibes, but consistent alignment. Frequency isn't about always feeling good. It's about always feeling true. And sometimes truth is tender. Sometimes it trembles. Sometimes the highest frequency you can hold is one of self-compassion, of gentleness, of radical honesty. That too is coherence. That too is power. Because it's not pretending, it's presence. And presence is magnetic. You are not here to perform a perfect frequency. You are here to remember your real one, the one that lives beneath the armor, beneath the programming, beneath the performance, the one that doesn't shout, but resonates, quietly, deeply, consistently. And from that place, you stop chasing life and let life recognize you. Let life rise to meet you. Let life reshape around the new tone you carry, not as a concept, but as a current, as your living, breathing signal of truth. When you truly become the frequency, you don't need to convince anyone. Not the universe, not yourself, not even your inner doubts. There's a quiet knowing that settles in, a calm in your chest, a stillness behind your eyes. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer split, no longer fighting against your own energy, no longer affirming one thing and vibrating another. You've returned to wholeness. And wholeness speaks louder than words ever could. You see, coherence is a kind of gravitational pull. It draws life toward you, not by effort, but by magnetism, because energy recognizes itself. And when you pulse with the frequency of love, of abundance, of freedom, those forms begin to take shape around you, not through hustle, but through harmony. Not because you forced them, but because you matched them. But here's what no one tells you. The moment you start holding a new frequency, everything that isn't in resonance with it begins to rise to the surface. Old fears, old patterns, old identities, not to punish you, but to be seen, felt, and released. It's like tuning a guitar that's been out of pitch for years. As you turn the pegs, you'll hear some discord, some strain, some resistance. But that's the sound of alignment returning. That's the sound of the old frequency dissolving. And most people give up right there. They think, why does it feel harder now that I've chosen a higher timeline? But the answer is, because you're now vibrating truth. And truth flushes out everything that was built on pretending, everything that was built on survival. This is the frequency detox. And it's sacred. It's part of becoming. It's part of embodying a new reality. You don't manifest from comfort. You manifest from coherence. And coherence often requires courage. The courage to feel what you've avoided, to let go of what used to feel safe, to stop settling for a life that matches your past, and start pulsing with a life that reflects your essence. This is why emotional regulation isn't just self-care. It's quantum work. When you regulate your nervous system, you stabilize your signal. When you feel safe in your body, your frequency expands. When you meet the discomfort with breath, with softness, with presence, you alchemize it. You transmute it. You raise your vibration not by forcing positivity, but by releasing resistance. There's a moment that comes, often in silence, often when no one is watching, where you realize, I don't need to be loud to be powerful. I don't need to prove to be worthy. I don't need to chase what's already mine in vibration. And in that moment, you drop the struggle. You stop micromanaging the miracle. You stop grasping at signs and start becoming the sign. The walking, breathing evidence of what's already done in the unseen. This is embodiment, not the appearance of having it all together, but the reality of holding yourself gently, honestly, steadily, in the frequency of your highest truth. And when you live from that place, you become undeniable. Not because of your words, but because of your wavelength. People feel it. Reality feels it. Life bends to meet it. So the question is no longer, what do I need to say to manifest this? The real question is, Who do I need to become to match what I'm calling in? What is the tone of that version of me? What does she believe, not with her mind, but with her breath, her bones, her field? How does she walk? How does she rest? How does she love, even in the waiting? And then, you live it. You breathe it. You embody it so fully that your words become secondary. Because now, your energy speaks first. And reality? It always answers the frequency before it answers the voice. There's something sacred that happens when you stop needing proof. When you stop scanning the world for signs and start becoming the sign. A shift so subtle it almost goes unnoticed. But inside, everything changes. You no longer perform trust. You are trust. You no longer try to vibrate love. You become the frequency of it. And in that embodied state, the outer world begins to bend. Not because you forced it, but because you've finally stopped resisting who you actually are. You see, most people aren't manifesting their desires. They're manifesting their coping, their fear, their unprocessed grief, their old identity wrapped in new words. And that's why the words don't work. Not because they're wrong, but because they're floating on top of an unstable frequency. It's like painting over a cracked wall and wondering why the color won't stick. The structure underneath hasn't been realigned. But when you go deeper, when you regulate the source, when you feel safe enough to receive, to soften, to stop controlling the outcome, the cracks begin to close. The structure changes. Your energy becomes a safe place for your desire to land. And what lands doesn't feel foreign. It feels familiar. Not a surprise, but a recognition. Because you've been carrying it in your field long before it showed up in form. This is how identity becomes the portal to manifestation. Because the frequency you hold is not about what you're doing. It's about who you believe you are. And when you change that, not conceptually, but energetically, the whole simulation responds. Life isn't testing you, it's mirroring you, and the reflection can't lie. So if the mirror is showing you lack, ask, where am I still vibrating with doubt? Where am I still tethered to the version of me that doesn't trust she's held? If the mirror is slow, ask, where am I still holding urgency? If the mirror feels blocked, ask, where have I blocked the sensation of receiving? Because this isn't about finding the right words to say. This is about aligning your entire being with the feeling of it already being done. Imagine waking up tomorrow with no fear about the how, no tension in your body, no scanning for signs, just a steady hum in your chest that says, I'm already there. That is frequency mastery. That is quantum alignment. And from that state, the need to prove dissolves. You don't have to manifest loudly. You don't need grand declarations. Because your presence does the talking. Your energy is fluent in truth. Think about the people you admire, those who seem to magnetize experiences, love, opportunities, with ease. It's not just luck. It's not just charm. It's coherence. It's embodiment. It's the frequency of someone who has stopped chasing and started radiating. Someone who knows they don't need to do more. They only need to become more congruent. Congruence doesn't mean perfection. It means integrity between your vibration and your vision. It means showing up with the inner posture of the version of you who already has what you're calling in. Not pretending, not faking, but aligning, moment by moment, breath by breath. And when the doubt returns, because it will, you don't panic. You don't spiral. You witness. You breathe. You remember that you are not your fear. You are the field that holds it. And in that remembering, your frequency stabilizes, again and again. So let your words be soft. Let your actions be simple. Let your energy be loud. Because it's not about what you say, it's about what you signal. And the more you signal truth, safety, presence, worthiness, the more life meets you with the reflection you've been waiting for. Not because you asked perfectly, but because you became the version who no longer needs to ask. She already is. She already holds. She already knows. There is a moment, and maybe it's this one, where you realize you don't have to wait for your reality to shift, to feel the shift within you. You can close your eyes right now, take one deep breath, and let your nervous system taste the frequency of what you've been longing for. The wholeness, the ease, the exhale. And that moment, it's not a rehearsal. It's the manifestation beginning. Because the greatest secret is this. Your external world is not the origin of your experience. It is the echo, the residue, the after-image of a frequency you've already been pulsing. So when you stop asking, when will it happen, and start asking, what am I broadcasting right now? You take your power back. You stop waiting for life to shift. You become the shift. You stop asking the mirror to change. You become the new reflection it cannot ignore. This is not about perfection. This is about presence. The kind of presence that makes a room feel different when you walk in. Not because you say the right things, but because your being is settled. Your heart is open. Your signal is clear. That kind of coherence is not loud, but it is unmistakable. And that's what creates the form, not the effort, the essence. Not more doing, more remembering. Remembering what? That you've always been the frequency. That the version of you who already lives the life you dream of, she's not distant, she's within. She's the one who knows how to breathe when the doubt arises, who knows how to soften when the outcome feels delayed, who knows how to trust the unseen, not because she's naive, but because she's embodied. And embodiment doesn't mean you never waver, it means you always return to the tone, to the breath, to the field of knowing that runs beneath the noise. The more you return, the more you stabilize. And the more you stabilize, the more life begins to reorganize itself around you. Not as a reward, but as a reflection. Because reality has no choice but to meet you where you are. So when you're wondering why the words aren't working, ask instead, have I become the signal? Have I cleared the resistance? Have I let my body feel safe enough to receive? Because the more safe you feel with the desire, the more it moves toward you. Coherence is not just clarity, it's receptivity. It's the quiet yes you pulse through your entire being. The yes that life cannot ignore. This is why the journey is inward first. Because no matter how beautiful the words, how detailed the vision, how powerful the rituals, they are only as effective as the frequency they ride on. And that frequency is not created in your mind. It is emitted from your regulation, from your emotional congruence, from the embodied truth that says, I'm no longer waiting to become her. I already am. And from there, life becomes simple again. Not always easy, but simple, clear, responsive, alive. You speak less, but are heard more. You try less, but create more. You ask less, but receive more. Not because you've figured out the secret words, but because you've become the resonance that makes words unnecessary. So today, in this breath, in this moment, drop the script. Let go of needing the perfect phrase. Feel instead. Breathe into the vibration you want to live in. Not as theory, as truth. Let it fill your chest. Let it anchor into your bones. Let it move through you like light. And when you open your eyes, walk differently. Speak differently. Not louder, just truer. Because now, you're not trying to be the frequency. You are the frequency. And life responds to that. Always. Unfailingly. Instantly.